want some sauce?
Scene 1, Apple, take 1.
What's up everybody, how's it going out there? In this video I'm going to show you how to make your own perfect bread rolls. And this is really ideally for like sub sandwiches or hoagies or grinders or whatever. But this is essentially how you go about making some really good rolls for those types of sandwiches. Now I'm going to be using whole wheat flour in this particular one, but all you have to do is just replace the whole wheat flour with just regular white all-purpose flour if you want to make white rolls. So I'm going to be putting in a package of yeast here, okay? And the amount that I'm making today is going to be enough for maybe 2 rolls. And all you have to do is just double up the ingredients if you want to make more. I'm going to add a little sugar to this, and it's going to be about a teaspoon, okay? Now, instead of the sugar, if you want to add honey, you can. In this particular case, I'm going to be adding both honey and sugar, okay? Because I think honey mixed with whole wheat a lot of times tastes pretty good in a roll. 2 cups of flour, and this is whole wheat. This is whole wheat stone ground flour right here, an organic one. But like I said, you can use just an all-purpose, and it's going to be just fine. Now I'm putting about 3/4 to 1 full cup of water. The reason why I say 3/4 to 1 full cup is because I won't know if it has enough water until I can see the consistency of it. I'm going to be adding some salt to this. This is kosher salt. Okay. Now, if I was using regular salt, regular table salt, I would use less. When it comes to the table salt, no more than a 1/2 teaspoon. If you're going to be using kosher, you can do about 3/4 teaspoon. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get this mixer going slowly at first. And depending on the consistency, that's going to tell me if I need to add more water or not, okay? Rarely do I have to add more flour, but now I can see that this isn't really wanting to come together very well, so I'm going to add some more water. Now with all-purpose flour, the amount of water that I have added probably would have worked. It probably would have been enough, okay? But I think it's important to start getting used to the way it's supposed to look and behave and feel instead of going with an exact recipe. Because when you go with an exact recipe, things don't always work out exactly as planned, okay? But if you go by consistency, it almost always works out. Okay. I can tell by the way that that's moving around that it needs a little bit more water. So I'm putting a couple of tablespoons inside there. And we're gonna sit back and watch. I'm looking for something that is just a little sticky. Now we need to let this mix up for a while so we can build up the gluten. Right now I'm kind of watching it to see its behavior. Right now I'm watching it for the stickiness. The elasticity is going to end up happening after the gluten gets built up. And that gluten is going to get built up the more that we need it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm testing this right now for consistency to see it. I can feel it kind of want to stick to my fingers, but it doesn't, right? That is pretty much what I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do now, on number 4, at this speed, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let this do its thing for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to let it rest for 5 minutes. And then I'm going to turn it back on and I'm going to let it do its thing for 5 minutes. And then after that, we're going to let it brew. And you see how it's sticky, but it's not sticky. That's exactly what I'm kind of looking for here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, throw it in the bottom here, and we're going to go ahead and let this rest for about 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, we're going to go ahead and we're going to knead it some more with the machine. Okay guys, so I let it rest for 5 minutes. Actually it was probably closer to 8 minutes, but it doesn't make a difference. You let it rest, and now I'm doing the second kneading. And I'm going to let this go ahead and do it again for about another 5 minutes, 8 minutes. And I'm looking for a certain level of elasticity, because during the time that you're mixing this and you're building up that gluten, you need it to be like a rubber band almost, right? Because that yeast is going to start eating up the sugars, and it's going to create carbon dioxide and alcohol. And that's why bread a lot of times will smell like beer, or beer is going to smell like bread, because that's exactly how you make beer, using the yeast to consume the sugars and turn it into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Now, if your bread doesn't have enough elasticity to it, it can't really hold onto those gases very well, okay? So what we need to do is we need to build up that gluten, give it a certain level of elasticity, so that way we know that during the time that it's proving and that yeast is making the carbon dioxide, we get nice little pockets of that gas inside the bread. That smells correct, okay? And I know it sounds crazy just by saying I can tell that it's done by the smell, but we're getting elasticity. You can see that it's not wanting to stick, but at the same time, it sticks, okay? It's semi-sticky, like that, okay? And it's got elasticity, and that's good. So now what we're going to do, yep, that's what I'm looking for. Now what we're going to do is we can go ahead and remove this. Now we're going to let this prove, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the inside with some non-stick spray, okay? And that way, as this starts expanding, it won't stick to the sides. It'll come out easier. I'm going to cover this with saran wrap. You can cover it with a towel or whatever else you want. And now we're going to let this set here until it doubles in size. I should say at least doubles in size. That's going to what's going to determine the speed of that is going to be how fresh the yeast is, how warm it is, how much sugar is inside there. A lot of different factors. Right now it's about maybe 68 degrees here. That's a little cool for yeast being active. About 100, 110 is actually really good. But if it's kind of cold where you're at, you can go ahead and turn your oven on to like 100 and then slip this inside there. But I figure something like this, 45 minutes to an hour and 15, and we should be good. And there's enough gluten in there that it should hold on to a lot of that gas. Okay, so this has been about an hour or so, and you'll see that it has kind of doubled. And now what we're going to do is we're going to knock it down just by kind of tapping it like this to get some of those gases out of there. And now we're going to transfer this over to somewhere that we can actually roll it. So sprinkle some flour on the work surface here. Just like before, this is the stone ground. Kind of figure out about what exactly half is so we can cut it and have two equal sized loaves. I think it's going to be around there. And what we want to do is we just kind of want to take this and start rolling it, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of grab it in the middle, push outward while I'm rolling, okay? And I want this to be even, but I want this to also be right around 12-inch, right? So that way we have our 12-inch sub type thing, okay? Because there's gluten, it's going to be a little elastic, okay? But we can kind of put some of this stuff over here, pinch it, do whatever we need to do in order for this stuff to work out. This right here, I'm going to call that one good for now, okay? And do the same thing with this guy. Now we've got two of these. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let these proof up again. But we want these to proof in the shape of a roll. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of cans here. Take some parchment. And this parchment is actually going to end up being used during the time that we're baking as well. Okay, so you can hit this. You can hit this with a little bit of non-stick spray, but parchment usually is pretty good about no stick. Then we take the bread that we have rolled and we just kind of put it here. Let me move the cans out a little further from one another, like that, okay? And so during the time that this is proving for the second, it's going to butt up against these and it's going to basically be straight, okay? So that's one, and I've got one for the other side. Let's give this about 30 to 40 minutes just so this can prove up again, okay? And it should maintain a shape of this curve that's in the parchment to help give it a good shape. So we let this prove a second time, and you can see it's kind of helping maintain the shape. You know, having like 2 rolling pins and like a towel works really good, but they actually end up having like proofing pans that you can throw this in, and it just holds its shape, and then you can bake it. In this case, what I'm doing is just fine. Just find something that will kind of maintain a side and just let this prove up. Okay. So anyway, now what we're going to do is we're going to transfer these to a pan. So now we end up having this, guys. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we are going to put this in a oven, preheated 400 degrees, and we're going to do that for about anywhere from really 16 to about 22 minutes. You'll know because it's going to expand into the size that you expect it to be, but at the same time it'll start turning a little golden, you know, from the baking. At this point, if you wanted to put like sesame seeds on here, you could. But before you do that, you would need something for those to hold on to. And then so you make an egg wash. And an egg wash is nothing more than just an egg. You beat it up, and then using a brush, you put it over the top. Okay? And then by doing that, it'll end up almost giving it a glaze, and it'll end up giving it a shine. And so you'll always be able to tell when somebody puts an egg wash on. But after you put your egg wash, you can sprinkle your sesame seeds on there. Now, what we have here, I'm not making anything like that, so I'm going to call this good. And now 400 degrees for about 16 to 20 minutes. And we go ahead and we take these out of the oven, and I need to take them out of the tray as well because we want these guys to kind of cool off and not continue cooking. And even though you might be tempted to cut into these dudes, don't do it until they cool off a little bit. Okay? If you cut into it now, there's a lot of steam inside here that will escape. It can cause this to get a little hard. It can also cause some of the stuff inside there to not fully cook. But when you squeeze it from the side, it's very soft. You can tell the inside is very soft on these rolls. And the top isn't really super hard. It's not like a bagel. It's just right, actually, for me. I think it's just right. Okay. But there you go, guys. That's how you can make rolls for any type of sandwich, really. This is whole wheat, but replace the flour here with regular all-purpose flour, and same thing. Okay. Also, all-purpose flour is going to proof a little bit better than these did. Okay, it's going to proof a little bit better, so it's going to get bigger. You're going to see. Okay, cooks a little different too, but ultimately that is that. So until next time, guys. Talk to you later.